This week we've got Ilyssa at Ilyssa on Twitter and Periscope. She's a bodybuilding, powerlifting, science-based dieting guru who, along with her partner, runs a business to help others lose weight and take control of their diets. But that's not all. Ilyssa is also an MA in English literature, and she uses her academic background to teach college-level composition classes in the San Francisco Bay Area. And if that's not enough already, she also talks about fitness and feminism in her Periscope channel. Without further ado, let's get right to the interview. Ilyssa, I'd like to welcome you to the podcast.
Thank you for having me, Sean. I'm so excited to be here.
So I originally ran into you actually on Periscope, and probably not tons of our listeners even really know what that is.
Right. It's like a live stream, but I'm the only person whose voice is being streamed, but people are allowed to comment, and then I can respond to them, and it kind of shows up at the bottom of the screen as I'm live streaming.
Yeah, and I found actually that when it comes to actually talking about things on a media where people listen, a lot of people get, more out of that than just reading a blog, for instance. Like, it doesn't pop as much on a blog.
Yeah, that, or, to be honest, a podcast, right? Because even with this podcast, it's you and I talking, but there's not that immediate interaction and commenting from listeners, right? You can have people that listen and then comment in hindsight, right, afterwards. But what's so interesting about Periscope is that live feature. It's that live feedback from other people. It's really cool.
Tell me a little bit about yourself, Ilyssa. Really, what I can see, there's like kind of two sides to this, two main sides. You've got fitness and eating, but then you have like education and intellectual. So you kind of got like body and soul going on, right?
Yeah, that's an interesting way of putting it. For example, last night I just started teaching a new semester, and when I introduce myself to my students, those are the two things that I talk about. The fact that I'm extremely interested in education, that I've been in school my entire life. For the most part, I've never left. And then that there's also this kind of fitness aspect of my life. There's this passion that is, like you said, physical, body. But I think up until, the past couple years, I didn't realize how interconnected those things are. Yeah, they're two sides of me, but I think that my sort of pedagogy when it comes to education and teaching is in many ways similar to my style of fitness, or similar to, for example, as a coach, right? Because I have clients, nutrition clients, and my partner and I, we run a business together where we do nutrition and programming. And I have a very holistic way of approaching my clients' physical fitness. We focus on mental health just as much as we focus on physical health. We focus on self-education and self-love in the same ways that we focus on, their physical fitness. So I think that my teaching and my education very much overlaps with my philosophy in fitness and in physical fitness.
So you teach fitness, but also diet and eating as well, right?
Right. Yeah. I run, I started an Instagram account several years ago under the username Ilyssa, and I kind of documented my progress of my weight loss, and my account's grown. It's quite large. There's like 56,000 followers or something now. And I've documented every process of fitness that I've gone through, from, losing weight to gaining weight to competing in bikini competitions to transitioning into powerlifting, which is what I've been doing for the past couple years. And yeah, I run a company called Oh It Fits, and I have nutrition clients, very, very few, very select group of girls that I spend lots of time with. They become my best friends. Actually, right before we started this interview, I have been texting my clients, told them what I was doing, told them I needed an hour so that I could talk to my friend Sean, and they get it. They're fantastic. They're wonderful. They're my best friends. And again, that's how I see my clients, not just as names on a page, but rather as individuals and people that I want to become close with. And that's how I see my students too, I guess.
What brought you to that point where you were like, yes, this is what I want to do. I want to make this trip. I want to, work on my body to make it, I guess more appealing or how, what have you, like goals physically?
Yeah, that's an interesting question because I think, unfortunately, my journey to, at least my initial step towards physical fitness was not one out of love. It was one out of self-loathing. I came to physical fitness because I actually hated my body. I wanted to punish my body. I was overweight to an extent. I'm a 5'10" female. I'm long-limbed. I'm tall, but I was around 175 pounds. I gained quite a bit of weight throughout the course of time, being in college, of course, and eating really poorly, and just, various things, being in terrible relationships, and eating my feelings. I think a lot of girls have similar stories where they go through phases of self-deprecation and self-loathing. And so I basically came to fitness by making a decision to lose weight because I hated my body. I thought that I was ugly, despised myself, wanted to lose weight. So unfortunately, though I did lose weight rather rapidly through eating, 1,400 calories a day and burning 1,000 calories worth of cardio every day for 6 days a week, it was dangerous, but I did lose very rapidly. I lost 25, 30 pounds very quickly. And then eventually, got down to when because I moved from that weight loss into prepping for a bikini competition. And in exactly 9 months, I had gone from 175 pounds to 129 pounds so that's, how many pounds is that? I can't do math. Is that 36 pounds?
Yeah, like 40 pounds, something like that.
Yeah, like almost, well, and then by the time I was stage lean, so I was about 40 pounds of weight loss. So 40 pounds off of 5'10" frame. And what's interesting is that, I lose all this weight. It took 9 months for me to do that when I stepped on stage, and I still hated myself.
I don't know. Like, I was trying to frame my question to you in a way where I was trying to say that maybe, people lose weight, but are they really trying to shape their body for themselves, like for their own happiness, or are they somehow, is there other things at play,
Right. And I'm not going to say that my experience is a singular experience, but I don't think it's everyone's experience. I think that a lot of people come to weight loss for wonderful reasons, and that they have good critical thinking. So I guess that's what I'm moving towards is my love for myself. And I have lots of self-love now. My life is very different now, years later. The reason why I've come to love myself now is because I realized that physical fitness was not just a physical thing, but it very much was an intellectual thing. It became a mental journey just as much as it was a physical journey. And once I started to deconstruct why I wanted to lose weight, instead of just saying I want to lose weight, once I started questioning why I wanted that so badly and what society does to enforce that kind of behavior on me, especially as a female, and why I felt as though my body had no worth in the first place. Once I started to deconstruct those things and challenge those things and really sit there and learn about myself, spiritually, that's when things started to change. And that's when I started to really see my body in a totally different way. There's this beautiful quote, and it says something along the lines of that, your body has been waiting its whole entire life for you to be friends with it, right? You are taught to hate your body, especially as a woman, for a lot of your life. And once I started to see my body as a friend, and once I started to love my body and love it for no reason, love it unabashedly, my life changed completely.
Can you tell me a little bit, because I know that we've done a little work with the physical here, but there's also intellectual as well, and I know that we just spoke about the overlap a bit. In addition to being a personal coach, you also teach as well. You teach courses. What exactly are you teaching?
So I teach at the university level. I am an adjunct instructor. I got my master's degree in English literature with a focus in critical theory, and my main research interests are in gender and sexuality and race. So currently, I teach composition courses. It's actually my passion. I love teaching first year composition. I love getting students right when they're 18, 19, freshmen in college. I love bursting their bubble and welcoming them into an academic space that is very different from high school. I challenge them to think critically. So my courses are about, first year composition, about English and writing and rhetoric and things like that. But I always theme my courses around something that's relevant to their lives. In the past, I've done courses themed around gender and privilege. This current semester, I'm teaching courses. One course is all focused around technology and social media, and the other course is themed around TV, film, and radio. So actually, in that course, one of their essays is an analysis of a podcast episode. So perhaps they can choose this podcast to analyze.
I'm starting to quake even thinking about it. So it sounds like you're kind of working this idea of, well, at least prior to this, gender equality, and also, media, how things are portrayed, and how things are packaged up maybe for consumption. And also with composition, I'm just thinking that also teaches a form of criticism, because you have to deconstruct something in order to build it back up and make it coherent.
Right. Yeah, I think it's interesting because you sort of just did that in a very meta way. You deconstructed.
I was about to say, just like I was attempting to do.
Yeah, that's a very meta moment right there. Yeah, so, again, I think and this very much overlaps with fitness, right? I think many times students look at their writing, or they say that they hate English courses because they think that their writing has to look a certain way. This is what academic English looks like. And I tell them to F that box. I'm like, get out of that. I want to see your voice on the page. I recently wrote a letter of recommendation for probably the best student I've ever taught. And I wrote her this beautiful letter of recommendation. And the reason why I was able to is because something she does is that she imbues the lines of text with herself. She is in those words, and it is so clear and so apparent. But that only happens once you deconstruct what writing is in the first place, right? So she's a very, very good critical thinker, which makes her a better writer. And I think this very much applies to fitness, because I think if you are going to be good at fitness, if you're going to be a good coach, or if you're going to be a good athlete, you need to be able to think critically about your position. You need to be able to think critically about, the places that you are in, right? Your decisions don't exist in a vacuum. I didn't just randomly decide to lose weight. I decided to lose weight because society taught me that my body was not worthy, right? And once I kind of remembered that, I guess I'd always known it, but once I kind of deconstructed it and accepted that, I realized that I had power over those decisions. That doesn't mean that society is going to stop and, projecting those kinds of standards onto young men and women. But if you can recognize the ways in which society tries to manipulate you, you can take power over those things. And the same thing happens in writing, right? I think a lot of students feel as though this is what academic English looks like, and they're afraid. And so I teach them, here's how you deconstruct writing. And then they realize that they have power over it, and that they have power over what they write. And that's, I mean, of course, very empowering. So again, I think there's this huge overlap. How do you become an empowered person? You deconstruct the spaces that you're in so that you can take power back for yourself. So that's what's really interesting to me, I think.
That's interesting because I find that deconstructing and reconstructing, these are sort of big sounding words, but
Right.
in a sense, and I don't know if you feel the same, they're big words, but you don't need to. The ultimate goal of writing, for me at least, is to be able to properly express a point or who you are, or even an emotion or an idea. And I find that in academic settings, because I had a degree in classics. I have a degree in classics. In academic settings, it's all too easy for people to fall underneath the jargon, and then all of a sudden, like, people are trying to just sort of learn, I don't know, like the magical incantations to put on a page, like what, here's the magical words that you need to use, rather than just saying, oh no, fuck it. I'm going to, here's an idea that I have. I'm going to express it in an economical way, in a way that it goes through the page and is understood.
Right. Well, because I think you're so right that writing is scary for people because they are afraid that they're not going to put the right thing on the page, right? But then once you realize there is no right thing to put on the page, then you take power back, right? In the same sense that, like, why do people have, like, why do people hate their bodies? Because they're like, well, my body doesn't look like the ideal. But then once you realize there is no ideal, and someone trying to tell you there's an ideal is full of shit, then you're like, oh my God, I can be who I want to be. And I can love me regardless of whatever some arbitrary ideal is, right? These things are very, very comparable. We fear standards and ideals and things that we measure ourselves up to that don't even exist in the first place. And so that's what Jacques Derrida is talking about when he uses this term deconstruction. When he's talking about deconstruction, he's saying nothing exists outside the text. Like, none of what you think exists in the concrete is concrete. It's just abstract. So let it go. And recognize that, I mean, there's nothing that exists in a vacuum that is ideal. You can create what you want to create.
So let's bring it back down a bit, because we got pretty high up there. So I'm just, I know that you do, back to the fitness, I know that you do macros. Like I go to, I'm watching your Periscope. I also take a look at your Instagram as well, and you're weighing your food. You're doing something very scientific there. You're actually analyzing what goes into your body machine versus what goes out of the body machine, and when you're exercising, etc. Right. So, can you tell me what is like IIFYM? That's something that I saw in the literature. Like, what are macros? What is all that stuff?
Yeah. So, if it fits your macros, abbreviated IIFYM, is the scientific notion backed by science that, there are three major macronutrients: protein, carbohydrates, and fats. There's a fourth, right? It's alcohol. But and that when you consume food, you are consuming food in varying levels of these macronutrients. Each of them equates to a certain caloric level. So carbs and protein are each worth 4 calories per gram, and fats are 9 calories per gram. So you eat, a certain number of calories a day, and those calories are broken down into various macronutrients that are right for your body. There are different ratios that are appropriate for certain people. Every body is so different. There are ketosis diets, which are very high in fat, low in carbohydrates. There are diets like mine, where I have rather high carbohydrates, moderate protein, and low fat. and everything in between, but it's about what works properly for your body. The philosophy that is, though, that there is no such thing as healthy food or unhealthy food. There's no such thing as, these dangerous, toxic chemicals, whatever. Everything is made of chemicals.
Exactly.
And the science, right. The science supports this, right? Like, the notion is that, of course, there are foods that are highly, much more micronutrient dense. And by micronutrients, I mean, minerals and vitamins. But if it fits your macros is the philosophy that if it fits into your daily allotted macros that are right for your body, again, everyone has different macros that are right for their body, then if you eat in a deficit of calories, you will lose weight. If you eat in a surplus of calories, you will gain weight. So that's why recently there's this picture that's been going around. It says the only tool you need to lose weight is a food scale. Right? You weigh out your food. And I mean, it's much more complicated, I think, than what I'm making it right now. But it takes a while for people to, get over this fear of, again, these ideals. This food is healthy. This food is unhealthy. It's like, it's not that simple, right? How many calories does that food have? Yes, avocados are extremely healthy foods, micronutrient wise, but they're also really high in calories.
They're very fatty, aren't they?
They're full of fat. And for someone like me, who doesn't, like, my body does not metabolize fats well, I can't sit there and eat a bunch of avocados just because they're healthy. I'm not going to lose weight, right? If I eat, 1,900 calories worth of avocados, like, I'm just, so it's about determining what macronutrient levels work best for your body in particular.
And and this also makes allowances for different people. I mean, it seems like I can eat whatever and I will get bigger. Like, I need to really use that. I think it was an SNL skit where they were like, how do I lose weight? Do I take a pill? How do I do that? And then they're like, it's simple. Move more, eat less, They're like, wait a minute, that's too hard. And
in a way, I mean, yes, that's a very reductive way of looking at weight loss, but it's true, right? Like, the idea is that if you, eat less calories than you burn, then yes, you will lose weight, right? Everyone has what we call a TDEE. It's a total daily energy expenditure level. And there's lots of formulas online so that you can find yours. So for short, TDE is your maintenance. What amount of calories would you have to eat every single day that you would not lose weight, but you'd also not gain weight? So you figure out what your maintenance is, and then you'd say subtract around 300 calories from that, and that would be your deficit. And then you'd split that deficit calories up into the different macronutrients, and that's what you eat, and you will lose weight. Like, it is really not that hard, but you have to be diligent.
Yeah, and the thing is that I guess the trick is, well, first of all, what I was going to get at there is that whereas I'm like that, my wife, because of the way her body seems to be put together, she has more leeway, I guess is the right term. Like, it seems like her caloric, her energy expenditure is so much higher.
That's called your metabolism.
Her metabolism is so much higher that she can just go ahead and eat and eat. Mind you, she doesn't eat. She likes sugary things. She eats those sorts of things, and she doesn't gain as much weight. She doesn't put on fat hardly at all. But what I was going to get at with what you were saying there is that it's not even controversial, because, I mean, let's say NASA wants to send a bunch of people to Mars. They're going to run those same sorts of formulas. I mean, are they not? They're going to be like, we need to make sure that these people keep a certain weight, that they're not going to starve. So they have a certain number of calories.
This is not like some magical snake oil, like the like the It Works wraps or the the weight loss pills or the Advocare, like whatever, right? This is science. This is backed by science. Like, these are the formulas, these are the numbers. It's like, I don't know. I think that, again, this comes back to critical thinking. I've actually posted about this before. The people that follow If It Fits Your Macros, by and large, are people that are educated, because they're people that listen to science. They're people that, recognize that, if they are diligent with math and science, then it works out. It's always the people that are not willing to, I don't know, to listen to or to think critically that are like, what food do I need to eat to lose weight?
The way I got it, I actually know somebody, and she said that during college, she decided that she would only eat Pop-Tarts. I know it sounds insane, but she said, I'm only going to eat Pop-Tarts. And she lost weight, only eat Pop-Tarts. Now, I don't know what that did to her system.
So let's say that someone's maintenance level is 2,000 calories a day. Let's say they decide to eat at a deficit of 1,700 calories a day. That is a deficit of 300 calories a day, which is, over the course of a week, 2,100 calories. So over the course of a month, they have been in a deficit of 8,400 calories total for a month, right? So there are 3,500 calories in a pound of fat or muscle. So if we divide 8,400 divided by 3,500, that's 2.4. They should have lost around 2.4 pounds, right, over the course of time. Over the course of that month, because if they're in a deficit of 8,400 calories, right? So basically, say your friend was eating all of her 1,700 calories in Pop-Tarts, she's going to lose weight because it comes down to net caloric consumption.
She might get tired of those Pop-Tarts too.
Of course, she's going to get tired. I mean, those are not necessarily nutrient-dense micronutrients. She is likely not going to feel satiated. It's probably going to negatively affect her workouts because she doesn't have these long or like slow digesting carbohydrates. Instead, she has a bunch of fast digesting carbohydrates.
She's probably going to be tired and headachy. That would be my theory.
Exactly. So, I mean, no one in If It Fits Your Macros is advocating that you just eat a bunch of processed foods, like what we know as processed foods, right? I would say that 80% of my meals are highly micronutrient dense. In fact, right now, I'm not even really tracking macros. I'm doing something called intuitive eating because I just eat the same things I would normally eat. I don't need to like plug it into my FitnessPal or a tracking application in order to know what calories I'm at for the day because I've done this for years now. So I know basically what the amount of calories that I'm consuming every day. But in any case, I think your friend is right. You know, that's where we get these like Big Mac diets and Twinkie diets. And that's why Jared from Subway lost all the weight that he did. And that guy is super problematic. We don't need to get into him.
Yeah, let's not talk about him.
But yeah, I mean, he lost a lot of weight just eating Subway because the, amount of Subway that he ate ended up putting him in a caloric deficit. It's not like Subway sandwiches made him lose weight. It's the fact that he ate in a caloric deficit that put him that made him lose weight.
One thing I learned when I met my wife is that I would just sit down with a bag of chips. I'd be like, yeah. And I just shovel it into my mouth. And she's like, look, dude, take the chips and put them in a bowl.
Yep.
In a small bowl. And then you'll get an idea of how many chips you're eating. And that's the case is that the same thing with plates. I notice these days that when I walk into a restaurant, they give me this enormous plate. And it's like, well, maybe just even a smaller plate would help with portion control. You know what I mean?
Possibly.
Ilyssa, do you have any suggestions for how people can maybe eat more sensibly and, integrate some of these philosophies into their everyday?
I think that people just need to recognize that it's likely that they're eating more calories than they think that they're eating. It might be beneficial for someone to track their calories for a day, track their food consumption, and see where they end up at, whether they use a tracking app like My Macros or My FitnessPal, or even if they just use pen and paper. I think that many people don't realize that they're oftentimes eating in a surplus of calories. So find out what your maintenance is by maybe using a TDEE calculator online. Of course, they're not always going to be 100% accurate. The only way to really see if something's accurate is, if you experiment over the course of time. But it might be beneficial for people that don't want to be so tedious about tracking macros every day. They don't want to, kind of place that obligation on themselves. Maybe just to have a number in the back of their head. Okay, my maintenance is around 2,100 calories a day, and see if they can meet that every day. If they want to lose some weight, see if they can eat a little bit under that every day. If they want to gain some weight, gain some muscle, then see if they can eat a little bit over that every day. Tracking macros is not for everyone. It can very much be an obsessive, controlling, almost disordered kind of thing for certain people. But for other people, it's an amazing way of really seeing the progress that they want to see. So, yeah, I mean, portion control and really finding out how many calories a day you're actually consuming.
That's great. So, and is there, I guess, if you want to like maybe share your Instagram again or any websites that you have?
Sure. So I'd love if people could come and join me on my Periscope. My username on Periscope is Ilyssa. It's OHILYSSA. And that's also my Instagram name, OHILYSSA. I run a WordPress where I write a lot about, the kind of overlap between fitness and critical thinking. And that's OITFITS, OHITFITS.wordpress.com. I'm always willing to open up the floor to other people and other voices. And yeah.
Ilyssa, thanks so much for being on the show.
Thank you so much for having me. It's been a pleasure.
Thus concludes this episode of Share a Slice with Sean. Start music is Just Watching by Paddington Bear. End music is Curious by John Luke Hefferman. Both are available for download at freemusicarchive.org. Thanks for listening and tally ho.